Truffle. I'm going to show you how to make a truffle. We're going to use organic, fair trade cacao. It's not going to, the cream is not going to be raw, but the cacao will still be raw. We're melting it in a way that still kind of retains its like raw capacity. The beans that made this paste were not roasted, they were air dried in the sun, so that also kind of helps keep the enzymes, minerals, and psychoactive properties of cacao still alive. So our brains get activated when we eat it, even though we are eating pasteurized cream. It's organic though, so I guess, you know, it's less of a naughty thing to some people. Unless you're vegan, then I'm sorry. On the ganache, basically you want to get a good ratio between your cacao paste and your cream. You want the darker the chocolate, the better. It is going to make a more bittersweet truffle, but you'll have less potential for messing it up. The two kind of recipes I use are, for every 9 ounces of cacao, you have 8 ounces or a cup of cream, or for every 12 ounces of cacao, you have a cup or 8 ounces of cream. Now these make like, the 9 ounce one will make a more smooth, creamy truffle, and the 12 ounce will make more of like a fudgy, thicker truffle. So it kind of depends on what you're feeling. You know, you can do any variety between. Maybe you want it even more creamy, you could do 1 to 1, 8 to 8 ounces, or you want it harder, and you could just go crazy, basically. Once we make the truffle ball, we're going to coat that in a cacao mixture. It's really simple. I like it to be a crisper, harder outside covering, so I'll use 80% of it just straight cacao paste, and then I'll water it down, but not really water it down, like fat it down with just straight cacao butter, that fat that I was showing you. And I've already started doing this over here in our little makeshift double boiler. Pyrex glass measuring cup with hot water around it in a pot. Now I put 200 grams of cacao in there, and then, you know, the 20% would be 40 grams of the cacao butter, so there's 240 grams of stuff. Other ingredients we're going to be using is salt, which I like to use, you know, whatever mineral dense salt that I can find. And then today for our sweetener, I'm going to use cane sugar. It's an organic cane sugar. It's really, like, it's almost like brown sugar because it's so fresh. I'm making 2 batches of chocolate, or of the truffles. So what I did, you can see, I'm going to use 10 ounces of cacao paste to every 8 ounces of cream. And since I'm doing 4 batches, I have 32 ounces of cream. I need 40 ounces of cacao. And I have a scale, so I weigh it out in grams, and that equals 1,134 grams of chocolate, or cacao, and so I separated that, so there's like 567 grams in each of these.
Wow.
We're going to make a ginger batch, and we're going to make a plain batch. You need a whisk, and some sort of spatula thing, and then we'll need our heavy whipping cream. So this is the ginger batch. You can see I grated some fresh ginger in there.
Nice. It smells good.
Now we're going to pour the cream in there, just like this. Ew, it's so thick. Cacao, if you add water to it, any kind of water substance, it can do this thing what famous chocolatiers out there will call seizing. And it will basically force the fat, that white stuff that I showed you, to separate from the fiber of the cacao, and you'll be left with like a fudge, and then this like very like clear layer of all the fat. It raises to the top, and you'll have this weird, like, you're like, what do I do with it? You scoop out of it, or you cut it up and you just have fat on one side and chunks on the other, and it's weird. When we mix this in with our chocolate, we run the risk of having it seize up if we stir it too much. Heat it up to like a rolling boil, and as soon as it comes to a boil, we're going to take it off, let it calm down, and then pour it into the cacao. Turn it on a little, like between medium and high heat, because I want to heat it up semi-rapidly, but not like psychotically fast. And I'm going to stir the ginger around because the heat will extract the flavor of the ginger into the cream. And then I'm going to strain that out.
Extracting ginger flavor.
I'm also gonna make it kind of sweet, so I'm gonna add some sugar to this. You know, how about that much? See how it's boiling? Just as it starts to get a skin, we'll turn it off the heat. This is the part that's like, act fast. You kind of just want to get it all evenly on the chocolate. And we're gonna let it sit for maybe like a minute, 2 minutes to really let the heat of the cream melt all the chocolate, because we don't want to over mix it. So we want it to be completely melted before we even go in there and do anything.
Cream 2.
Which I forgot to add to the last one, but I just put it in right now. So the salt does something where it makes us taste something more. It like expands the flavor capacity of something. Perhaps if our chakras are really aligned, you know, and our third eyes are really open, I think that's how salt works. This is the tricky part, because if you overstir it, you're screwed. You're almost like folding it. Stirring gently is essential. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a pile of mess. Like when you get to this point, you really don't wanna like, you don't even wanna whip it or anything. You just kinda wanna gently like, be like, I love you. Once you have it all mixed up, see how it looks pretty well incorporated. You have a few options. You can either take this and just put it straight in the fridge, and later on you can scoop chunks out of it and form it into little balls. What I'm gonna do this time around, because I tried that last time, it works great, but I wanted to experiment with a new option. So I'm gonna lay it out into a flat sheet on some wax paper so that I can make almost like a big pancake of ganache, and then I can cut it up into little pieces later, so maybe it'll take the time out of scooping it and forming it into a ball. Let's see how this one's doing. Okay, so we're gonna cool it. We're gonna use the fridge because we're making, or the freezer, because we're making a video. We want it to be chilled a little bit fast. If you chill in the freezer and you leave it in for too long, you can run into the circumstance of having too much moisture.
Oh, yeah.
Because freezers have a lot of moisture floating around in them, so you have to be aware of how long you leave it in there uncovered. This is the hard ganache. We still have the other half sitting in the freezer. It's going to chill for a bit longer before I transfer it to the fridge so it doesn't get moist, remember? And I'm just going to like cut these into little pieces with a really sharp knife. So remember I was telling you before, you can take it and scoop it out of that thing and turn it into balls. I find this is easier because as you start to hold it in your hand, it will start to melt, and because that potential for seizing of the cacao when you add moisture, it will crumble if you work with it too much, and then you'll just have like a whole bunch of crumbles, which is delicious to eat, but you can't really make a truffle out of it. And now this is the 80% cacao and then 20% cacao butter mixture that I made earlier. I haven't sweetened it or added any salt, which you can totally do. You could add vanilla, you could add maca, you could add chlorella, you could add any kind of superfood craziness, or cinnamon or ginger powder. Endless possibilities. This cacao is really melty, and if I put a whole bunch of them in there, when it's this warm, these will start to melt and they won't get adequately coated. So I'm just going to put it on my fork and kind of dip it in there. And then drop it onto the wax paper. Just like that. We could add maybe another layer to make it more thick and protected on the outside. Wow, I just made something that tastes good and feels good all by myself.
Each other through